Okay, call this meeting to order. Let the record show that all commissioners are present. Please stand for pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we do not have any minutes to approve. So, anybody who needs any citizens' comments, the sheets are there. I didn't get any. Anybody want to address court? Okay. Let's go now with item 6. Lupita Galindo, Chairman of the Valverde County Child Welfare Board, submitting the name of Ashley Lopez to fill in the vacancy of the...
Motion to approve. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nobody? 5-0. Next, we have item 7. Charlene Haydinger, Executive Director of Keeping Pace in Texas. Good morning.
A little technical difficulty here, so bear with me today.
This one here.
Wonderful PowerPoint, but I'm going to skip it. My name is Charlene Heidinger, and I am here on behalf of Keeping Pace in Texas. This is an organization that was formed 5 years ago to create an economic development program. The Texas legislature passed it in 2013, but it's a local adoption program. It is voluntary for absolutely everyone. You can create the program or not. If you do a business, this would be a commercial property, an industrial property, or multifamily, so apartments with at least 5 units, could avail themselves of this program. It does not use any taxpayer dollars, and there is no financial risk to the county. What this program does is try and help organizations update their properties. Most properties have old roofs, old air conditioning systems, old boilers. They're operating with original windows. They need insulation. They need a lot. But they can't afford to update the property. What capital they have is going to stay in the business. It's going to be put to growth or maintaining the business as it is. But nobody wants to lay off somebody to replace an air conditioner. So they don't do it. So across the country, this is not unique to Texas, across the country our properties have a lot of deferred maintenance. As a result, those businesses have expenses that are higher than they should be. Businesses pay way too much for water and power because of their old equipment. And what happens is, because we don't have a system that financially benefits a company, they muddle along. They wrap another roll of duct tape around the air conditioner and hope they sell the building before it totally dies. So the idea behind PACE is that if a business could afford the upfront costs of this equipment, they would get it because they would benefit so much from the reduction in their operating expenses going forward. The problem is it just costs too much. And most of this equipment takes 10, 15, 20 years to repay itself in savings, in energy savings or water savings. So they just don't do it. We have a water need. We have a power need. So if we could help these businesses, we would benefit the entire community. That's the theory. So in 2013, when I was looking at getting this legislation passed, it was easy for me to say to the legislature, you're spending billions on roads, you're spending billions on the CREZ lines to get the power from wind to where it's needed. They were passing a $52 billion water plan. And I said, the business community has the fourth piece of this infrastructure for Texas. We've had 1,000 people move to Texas every day for the last 5 years, and there's no let up in sight. We need enough power and water for those people. So this legislation was supported by the Texas Association of Business, the Texas Association of Manufacturers, the lending community, because the idea is the governor of New York, the governor of Michigan, the governor of Wisconsin, they're all standing in front of huge bodies of water saying, bring your business here. Why go to Texas? They can't take care of you. So that was the incentive in 2013. Here's how it works. The idea is, if a business could make the property responsible for paying back the financing, all of the barriers go away. If the lender gets a senior lien on the property, they'll go out 15 or 20 years. If you can stretch out the loan long enough, the savings pay for the project. So PACE stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy, and the reason you need to be involved is that in order for this to work, your ability to assess property is the economic development tool that's needed here. So if a bank is asked to pay to finance an air conditioning system, they'll go, well, we'll do that for 5 years. Well, if it's a 5-year loan on something that's not going to break even for 15 or 20 years, there's a huge cash flow hit to that company. So they don't do it. Banks don't know how long a company is going to be in business. They don't know how long a company is going to own the property. And they can't come and take the boiler if you don't pay. What PACE does is say, okay, bank, we're going to reduce your risk. If a property owner comes to the county and says, I've worked out with my contractor what improvements, they have to qualify. They have to save energy or save water or create power on site. So that could be solar or microgrids or CHP, which is a natural gas thing that industrials really like. But anyway, so a property owner comes to the county and says, I've worked out my financing. You wouldn't be involved. They find their own interest rate. They find their own lender. They find their own contractor. The money is provided in the private sector. Bonds are not needed or anything like that. They come and they say, okay, we ask you to put an assessment on the property. So they've transferred their obligation from the company to the property. And I want you to put a senior lien. I agree to a senior lien on this property. I want you to assess my property, the cost of these improvements over, say, 20 years. And I promise to pay it. And if I don't pay it, you will collect the assessments that are past due in the same way that you would collect past due taxes. The lender comes in and signs a contract with the county that says, the county says, okay, in exchange for providing the funding for this project, you get the right to the stream of payments as they come in. And oh, by the way, we don't really want to use our resources and our tax assessor collector to put these on the bill and collect them like a sewer assessment or sidewalk assessment. We want you to collect it. So we have written a program that does not require much in the way of county resources in terms of your staffing, virtually none. And then they send the bills, and they'll let you know if somebody's behind in payments. So let's just go to the worst case scenario. If one of these goes wrong, and I cannot find a default in a commercial program anywhere in the country, it's relatively new, but it's successful, the only thing that could be collected is the past due payment, because assessments on property don't accelerate. They come due one at a time when they come due. So a property that's sold with a PACE assessment on it, the previous owners paid the payments, the new owner pays the remaining ones. If a property got into trouble, the only thing that could be collected is the past due assessment. The remaining assessments haven't happened yet, and they would get paid by a new owner. The reason this program is working is that the assessments are designed to be smaller than the savings. We, when I say we, Keeping Pace in Texas is the organization that lobbied for the program and reaches out to counties about it. There is a nonprofit, and I am affiliated with that runs these programs for the 15 jurisdictions that have created this program. It is paid by a user fee. No taxpayer dollars are involved. It does all of the work. But if one of these were to go bad, we would come to the county and say, this payment is late. And we would work with your tax assessor collector. The outside attorney that collects your past due taxes would do the work. The statute says you would be reimbursed for all of your costs. And you would get interest and penalties in the same way. So there's no out-of-pocket expense there. So the idea is this is run by a nonprofit that is as a public service to your community. It is at the lowest cost in the country. It does not do any work that can be done in the private sector. This is all completely done in the private sector. And so the program is there if somebody wants to use it. The worst thing that can happen is that nobody uses it, right? So here's how we designed this to be county friendly. When the statute passed, we had this huge collaboration. Texas Association of Business, but the Sierra Club. We had the Texas Manufacturers Association, Dow Chemical, Dixie Chemical, and the Environmental Defense Fund. Everybody liked this because it was voluntary. No mandates, no use, no siphoning of money away from local government, etc. So, when we got this done, we realized if we didn't do anything, it was impossible to expect counties to be able to put this program together and run it. And we didn't want 254 programs. So to make it efficient and to make it easy to use, everybody had to have the same system. It took a year to write what we call Case in a Box. But it's a plug-and-play program for you. The model documents are done, the process is done, it is the best practices. Governor Perry wouldn't sign this bill unless we had 2 independent engineering reviews. We have by far the toughest consumer protections in the country. But we're able to do this at low cost because the engineer does all the technical work, and the lenders, because they're private lenders and they're lending their own money, they do underwriting. We have underwriting criteria. If they want to do more, that's fine. Let me point out, local banks with a mortgage must provide written consent before any of these financing deals can happen, because they have to go second to the senior lien, and we said this is going to be voluntary for everybody. So if the deal doesn't work for the local banker, if it's not a good business deal for the local banker who has the mortgage, then the deal isn't going to qualify. But we won't close these deals unless the savings exceed the cost of the assessment to make sure that there's money there to pay back. And that's why this is going to be successful. So every state that has looked at this since Texas is copying our model. It's the most free market. It's the most small government. The statute makes this a governmental function, so you have governmental immunity. The statute gives your staff or any official working on this program has personal immunity. The contracts that are signed make very clear that there is no recourse to the county. So financially, you're covered. So let's talk about your fiduciary duty. We need this to be successful. One bad deal will kill the program nationwide. So the technical and underwriting standards are the toughest in the country. And if I get a complaint about this program, it's that we're too tough. And we have turned down some good opportunities to help businesses because they weren't cash flow positive. So we're pretty strict about that. And then the other thing is there anybody in Valverde County who would use this? You've got, just like every other city in county, in the state, and in the country, there are older buildings that can use this, and businesses that can't afford to take care of their buildings that could use this. And the idea is they don't have to use their own cash, so they don't have to hurt their business in order to get this done. But you're protected because of the underlying protections built into the program. But you've also got well, Deacon Hobbs is the one who asked me to come and talk to you because the diocese has several churches in the county that they would like to use this program for. We would come and do education, work with your business community, work with your contractors. So the idea is economic development too. If these buildings, if people have the ability to start taking care of their properties, somebody's got to manufacture that equipment, somebody's got to deliver that equipment, somebody's got to install that equipment, somebody's got to feed those folks. So there is economic development that happens here. And then if you need more water or you need more power, if we can get businesses to be more efficient and you can put that off for a year or two before you have to start buying more, that's going to save everybody money too. It takes people usually 3 presentations to really understand this program, and I appreciate that. Having a talking head is kind of hard. In your packets, there's a folder we created for local government so you could understand it a little bit better. Our most recent project is our first industrial project in Corsicana. Levy sews cheerleader uniforms, and their company's been in Missouri for years. decades, and they decided to move to Texas. As many other businesses, this is a great place to do business. So they found a former Hager sewing plant that was empty and had been empty for a long time in Corsicana. And they called the Corsicana Economic Development Director and said, if you create a PACE program in Navarro County, we'll buy that building. But we won't buy it without a PACE program because it needs air conditioning, we needed all this stuff. So they spent $230,000, and on their PACE program, that factory will open at the end of this year, and they're creating 60 to 80 manufacturing jobs in this empty facility. So we're pretty excited about that one. Our largest project in Dallas is an office building that was an empty warehouse, had been just an eyesore, built in 1910 right across the street from City Hall. And that project took an empty warehouse and turned it into 2 Marriott hotels, high-end loft apartments, and then retail on the first floor. And that project, we saved that company not saved, but they used PACE for $24 million of the $150 million it cost to buy and fix up that property. So our smallest commercial property was a $170,000 improvement to a storefront in Bryan, Texas, and they did a little bit of solar and lighting and replaced their HVAC. So those are the kinds of things that we're interested in doing. Our first project was a synagogue in Austin, and Congregation Beth Israel had an education building hooked onto the sanctuary, built in the 80s, and the architect should be shot, but it had this giant skylight which just fried the entire, in an atrium, so it just fried the entire building, fried the equipment. And they were moving babies in their day school into the sanctuary because the air conditioning wasn't working. And they did not have the $450,000 required to replace that HVAC system in that building. They had no idea where they were going to get the money. But because it was cash flow positive, we were able to do it. It wasn't cash flow positive when they first brought it to us. HVAC by itself is very expensive. But when you add the LED lighting and insulation and a couple other less expensive things that pay back quicker, that you have the benefit of not only being able to afford to do all that at once, but LED light bulbs don't burn as hot. So if the air conditioning isn't going out the windows and trying to heat hot light bulbs, all of a sudden you get extra savings because you may not need as much HVAC as you would if you just replaced the HVAC without dealing with the envelope of the building, is what we call it. So they'd already done their lighting, but they had all this glass. So they put an industrial window tint on the glass, and that was actually done while the air conditioning was being manufactured. The teachers could not believe the difference just in the window tinting, but it was enough to bring down the return on investment, so it was cash flow positive. May I answer questions? I know this is a lot. It's a lot to cover, and I promised the judge it would only take 2 minutes. But we are in 12 counties. Let me see if I can do this. Brazos, Cameron, El Paso, Hayes, Hidalgo, Nueces, Navarro, Nueces, Travis, Williamson, and Willacy. So we've bookended the border, and we have spoken to the TCEQ, and the North American Development Bank is interested in providing financing for these projects. They can go within 66 miles of the border. So we don't want this program to just be in the big cities. We want this program to serve all of Texas, particularly with water. We made a commitment to the legislature that we would serve all of Texas. So we would love to serve you as well. And if you get one property a year, that's a good thing, right? And this is hard to get started, so I'll tell you, if you do this, other than the church, this will sound quiet for a while. You'll say, well, what happened to that program? It takes about a year for a business to learn about this.
What's the benefit to the church?
And do it. Pardon?
What's the benefit to the church? Why do they want this program?
The benefit to the church is that we get to change out all of our infrastructure, air conditioning, windows. We get to add solar if necessary. We get to change out faucets, toilets, et cetera. Anything that uses resources, we get to change it out.
But what's
Save
stopping
money.
you from doing it now?
Sorry?
What's stopping you from doing it now?
Money.
So the idea,
Because
Still don't
what
understand.
happens is
They get to
that,
pay it off in a longer amount of time,
well, if we got a commercial loan, we
It's a
have
short
a
time.
3 to 5 year payback period. Through PACE, we get a payback period of 18 to 20 years. It makes it much more affordable for us to do it.
so,
So your payback on the initial will take you how many years to recoup your,
The payback is about 18 to 20 years, but the recoupment period.
and the value and the longevity of the investment is how many years?
Well,
These ACs are gonna last 18 to 20 years?
Well, when you take an air conditioning system that we're considering, of course, they last at least 20 plus years. The payment would be already completed while the air conditioning system is still running. We have air conditioning systems right now that are 40, 50 years old, that are not up to standards. They're not technologically advanced. So we want to treat them out. The savings to us would be in the usage of the air conditioning system, the new system versus the old system. So it's an immediate payback as soon as you turn the system on. We also have the ability then to change out all of the light bulbs, interior and exterior, going to LED, which has a payback period of 18 months to 24 months.
I understand what you're saying, I just,
actually, in the packet, at the back of the flyers, there's a nonprofit flyer, a commercial flyer, and an industrial flyer. Does the nonprofit flyer have a chart on the back? Okay, I think that is I think that's the church, the house of worship, Congregation Beth Israel example back here. So, if you look at the first column, this is what happens if you self-fund. If you had enough money or you raised charitable dollars to replace that HVAC system, you'd need $450,000 to do that, right? The second column is if you borrow money, you've got a $90,000 20% down payment. And the third is with PACE. PACE has no down payment. So if you look at your savings in the first year, you're going to have the same savings every year, right? But when you self-fund, it's all money out of pocket. So the business or the organization still has to come up with $400,000. That's a lot of charitable dollars to raise, and it's charitable dollars taken from the core mission, right? So, and then you have to add, not only do you have the down payment, but the first year payment for conventional loan. PACE is designed so that if you're going to save $45,000 on this project, the PACE payment must be less than that. So they're going to actually have cash coming out of the savings. Now, if you look at the net present value of that investment, and that's this third from the bottom row, that's what happens if you compare this investment to running the organization the way you want it to run, right? So the idea is that it's all about cash flow. Organizations don't have cash flow. So whether it's a business or a nonprofit, this program works for industrial, that includes ag, so we can help farmers with pumps and cool roofs and whatever else they need on their facilities, both water and power. But the idea,
why do you need us?
because the only thing that makes this work to reduce the risk of a lender is because lenders won't go out.
How do we reduce the risk? We're gonna
The lender-
guarantee the lender?
Nope, you don't guarantee anything to anybody. They need to make their own choice in the private sector. But if the property owner comes to you and says, I want to make this PACE financing, they are making the property itself liable to you, and you're going to assess that property the cost of the improvements. One of the protections for the consumers is the length of that assessment cannot go out farther.
Okay, when you say assessment, does that mean we're going to not charge tax on that
Nope,
property?
nope, that's a great question, and I should have that's the one word I wish I could change in anything, so it's PACE, Property Assessed Clean Energy. So the one problem in Texas is that we also do water, and there's no way to add a W to that. But the other thing is assessment. So assessment in this term means that property is getting an economic benefit that is unique to that property. So you don't want to tax everybody to pay for that improvement. So let me give you an example. I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they do a lot of assessments on property. So my parents lived in we lived in when I was very young, we lived in one of 5 houses on a dead-end dirt road. And 5 houses up, the road became paved, and it became East Grand Rapids, which is where Jerry Ford was from, so we'd all ride our bikes to the end of the street and watch this motorcade go by. But we were in Grand Rapids. So one year, the city came in and they paved the road in front of these 5 houses, and they said, well, it's a dead-end road, you're getting more benefit than everybody else. And so my parents had a street assessment added to their tax bill, along with the other 4 houses. The next year, they came back and they put in sidewalks, and now my parents had taxes and a street assessment and a sidewalk assessment. And I'm not kidding, the 3rd year they came in and they tore up the street and they put in sewers, and they had 3 assessments, and we moved. So the idea is that this property is getting something of economic benefit that also indirectly benefits the county. So in every other state, these assessments are added to the tax bill. In Texas, we knew that tax assessor collectors and local governments don't have the resources to do all this. So the lenders suggested the workaround that the county delegate to them the job of collecting the assessments. But this is money technically due and owing the county. And if you don't pay it, the county has the right, through the statute, to come in and collect it in the same way that you collect back taxes, which there's no cost to you to do that, and the vast majority of that work would be done by the outside law firm that collects your past due taxes anyway. But
I don't get it.
Yeah, I still don't get
Yeah,
it.
that's the part that's just blowing my mind.
There's something in here that's gonna cost taxpayers
I
something.
know.
I
The
mean-
biggest problem is that it sounds like it's too good to be true. So before I try
No,
again,
that's not the word I was looking for.
I know. Like, what is she not telling me? So just to give you a sense of this, I told you that there was this group that spent a year, these volunteers that spent a year, there were 130 people.
Okay,
that program.
let's try it through what he wants to do. How is that gonna
Well,
work?
I tried to show you that. Okay.
He pays no property tax on the church whatsoever.
Right.
So we assess absolutely nothing on the church
You
whatsoever.
don't tax the church, but you can, this is a voluntary assessment. If they come in and ask you to do this,
Okay, so we're gonna assess the church for the value of the improvement,
Right.
and they're gonna pay us, and then we're gonna turn around and pay the bank.
except that, just to not bother your staff, we contract that straight to the lender.
So
you don't have to do that, but
then,
yes.
what we do is we contract with you to handle this program.
Correct.
You can contract with
And
whoever
so
you
then-
want, but there's.
No, but we contract with a company to handle this program.
Mhm.
And so they go out and
It's a
he
service
makes,
fee.
he makes a deal with the bank on whatever his financing is through this program.
Mhm.
Y'all come to us, we assess it on the value or however it's done. Then y'all collect the money and you pay the bank what they're owed. And then you pay, I'm assuming yourself, what you're owed out of that?
So they pay the bank directly. When they close, we get an administrative fee. It's a user fee. There are no taxpayer dollars involved. So if there are no projects in Valverde County, it's not going to make a bit of difference to you. We just don't get paid. I've got a very small nonprofit. I don't think we're ever going to need a giant staff to do this. But we are funded now because we don't have, so the idea in Texas was to have a low-cost, high-volume project, which is part of the reason why we want to grow as fast as we can, so we have enough projects to pay for the overhead. But in the meantime, the Meadows Foundation, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, and the Environmental Defense Fund have given us grants to get going because they love Texas was the first place to say, we don't need to use bonds. There's plenty of private capital out there to do that. We don't need to put this on the tax bill. We need this to be a free market, stand or fail in the market program. with
What's the
as small
difference
government
between
as
me just
possible.
going and getting a business equity loan on my property and replacing everything?
If you look at that, it's cash flow. If you look at those.
Well, I still gotta make the payment, whether I make it
Well,
through this
That's
program or I make it to the
But if you make
bank.
it through this program, it's 100% financing, so you have no down payment, and you're going to save more money on your utility bills than this program costs. So you don't have to lay anybody off, you don't have to not grow, you don't have to,
I'm still gonna save the money if I make the investment on my utility bills.
right.
Whether I
You've
borrow
got a
it through
3
this
to 5
system
year
or I
loan.
borrow it through a bank.
That's true. But during that 3 or 5 year loans, when you're paying the bank back, it's gonna cost you way more, significantly more to pay that back than you're saving. So who are you gonna lay off? Or what are
It's
you,
not, I mean, if I do a business equity loan on a piece of property, which is like a second mortgage on a house, I can finance 20, 30 years already.
banks don't like to do they don't like to do these kinds of loans on this equipment. Most of them won't do it because they won't go out more than 10 years. They'll go out 10 years for somebody they really know and really trust, maybe. But they can't go out longer than that now because they have capital requirements out of Washington. They have to have enough cash on hand, so they're very reluctant to make long-term loans. If they go with a mortgage, they turn around and sell it.
So then what guarantees them they're gonna get that money?
The senior lien, they can come in and the tax assessor collector will pick up the phone and call your attorney, and
So then we'll go seize his property.
if you have to.
I'm gonna be able to seize property from the archdiocese for failure to pay.
So here's,
There's not a court in the world that is gonna let me repossess a church.
our first project was a church, and the lender was happy to do it because their installments are very small. You go out far enough, the installments are smaller than the savings. They would have to really mess up and not save that money. But what you're allowing them to do, and what you're allowing business to do, is so businesses, if your property was updated, and all your businesses had updated property, they'd have great lower utility rates, right?
I get that
I mean, there's
part
a
of this.
problem.
What I'm trying to understand is the part where we come in
Okay.
and why we need to do this.
Any one of those folders, or any one of those flyers I gave you has the comparison of what this costs. And so whether you self-fund or you fund from a bank,
I'm just trying to figure out, what is it gonna cost this county?
nothing.
But we have to
I've got a
administer
question here.
something.
You select an administrator who asks you to give them the authority to run this program for you at no cost to the county. The resolution of intent that you would pass, the resolution to establish the program, the report on how the program works, every one of them says the county will not reimburse anybody for anything.
And your company is a nonprofit?
Yes, sir, it's a 501c3.
I'm confused. I mean, I don't see the point why the county should get involved in something like this. This seems like more private business for you guys to do business with them or us or anybody out there.
That's a
I
great.
mean, I don't see the point. I just don't.
Okay, so local governments, cities and counties, are the only ones that have the authority, what we need.
What you need is our authority.
What you need is the economic development tool of the property assessment. If you.
What you need is our authority to seize property.
You need to get to the rat killing. That's what this melts down to. I mean, I'm just confused. I mean, I think it'd be good for the church, and yeah, I mean, if it's gonna help them and benefit them, and it'll benefit other people out there, but I don't see how we need to get involved in this.
The legislature said that you have to be involved.
Local government, county or city, or?
Yes.
County or city. So it's a local, adoption model, because only local governments have the authority to do property assessments.
If y'all approach the city on this?
No, because we wanted the entire county. Everywhere where I've done a city, we've done Amarillo, Dallas, and Houston, we end up with people right outside the city going, we need this, right? And a church may not be the best example in terms of the politics of having to collect, but I also understand that you've got properties that, like everybody, it's not unique to your county, but properties are falling apart and businesses can't afford to take care of them. You have a mechanism that can make that work.
You're talking, properties on the delinquent tax roll?
No, they may be. The lenders are not going to loan money in the PACE program for somebody who's past taxes or back past doing their taxes. They're just not going to do it. And you may want to say to the program, people have to be current on their taxes to use this program, but frankly, no lender is going to lend money to somebody who's late on property taxes.
The Archdiocese request is for you to approve the PACE legislation so that we can upgrade our properties. We may not be a tax-paying entity because we're a church, but it opens the door for other properties, commercial properties that are tax-paying properties, to benefit themselves. Ultimately, you create a higher valued property and create a higher taxable property.
In theory, I understand what you're saying.
It's a money game.
I have a difficult time understanding why the Archdiocese can't go borrow $400,000 for 20 years and.
Well, there's 3 churches in Del Rio. We want to borrow $450,000 per property. That gets to be a lot of money. In San Antonio, we have 94 parishes with 1,000 properties. It gets to be very expensive. So what we want to do is seek the PACE method because we can, again, draw it out for a number of years. While it's paying for itself through the energy savings.
I'm not going to say no, but there's just so much of this I don't understand.
Wait a minute. What you were describing is exactly what the city developed an economic development council, and they use, it's an entity in itself because they use taxpayer money to fund this entity. And that's basically what they do, is they look for programs like this. What I'm saying is this started, Commissioner, about 4 years ago? 3 years ago?
3 years ago.
About 3 years ago.
They
And that's
restarted.
exactly what the intent of that program was. And so we do have some people that sit on the Economic Development Council that do directly do things like this. So if we have an entity already, why come to the county or the city? Because we have an entity that deals basically with that.
Because that entity has to use taxpayer dollars. So when you do traditional economic development, whether it's a TERS or a PID, you end up spending taxpayer dollars in order to get businesses to move here or to stay here or whatever. This costs you nothing. All that these businesses need to work together is this ability to assess the property, to make the property responsible for paying it back. And the reason that there's no cost to the county is that what we need to overcome is the upfront barrier, the upfront cost of this equipment. The equipment
So-
to get to the savings is just too
One of the deals that you said a little while ago that it usually takes 2 to 3 times presentations or whatever before.
Well, I need a new computer.
Well, I mean, no, that's what you said when you started.
That's
And
exactly right.
I was making sure that I had your card because, I'm gonna have a lot of questions.
And you should. And Judge, I would.
So I'm gonna need to get with y'all on a one-on-one basis before I would vote yes on this. And I'm not trying to throw rocks at the whole situation.
No,
It just-
that is totally appropriate.
It's just,
Nobody gets this
I
on the
personally
first
wouldn't be able to say yes to it today.
Right. And
But I think it's a good program. I'm still trying to get my mind wrapped around how it's gonna work with the county.
well, I fear.
But we could be here for another 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, you got a big
You know what I mean?
meeting, so-
And I'm not trying to rush y'all off, it's just that,
No, it needs to, that's exactly right. So Judge,
I'm sitting here writing down little notes to be able to come back and ask.
Well, one of the things too about this is that although you're assessing the entire property, the PACE is only taking 20 to 35% of that assessed value and using it for PACE. Okay? So you're not putting up 100% of the property, only 20 to 35%.
So there are several consumer protections. One is that the assessment cannot last longer than the useful life of the improvements. Second is we have a 20% assessed value cap. Now, assessed value on property can not have a great relationship to what the property is actually worth, so there's other factors that we'll look at, but that's exactly right. This is going to be,
You know, and you just
there's gotta be
answered,
equity in
you just answered the question that Commissioner Nettleton just had, when he asked you how the life of whatever the
Yeah.
improvements were gonna be. Well, the assessment can't be more.
Can't be
You know, that's
more.
what I'm saying. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of questions that need to be answered.
So Judge Neal from Nueces put a meeting together for me. When we first came up and visited with him, he said, well, okay, I need this, I need to hear from my budget people that you're not using county money. I need to hear from my county attorney that this is going to work. I need to make sure the tax assessor collector is comfortable with this. I want the manager to be involved. So we had a meeting and pulled everybody in, and it was like defending a dissertation. I answered questions for
And that was just this, she was just handed the paper a little while ago, just so.
Right, so.
And it may be the greatest program in the world if we can get to the point where we understand the program.
Correct.
It's just when Austin or Washington decides that only government can deal with it, and they need something that we have to make this work, instead of figuring out a mechanism that leaves government out of it. I don't want to get in the business of competing with private enterprise, but there's something in this program that only government entities can do that y'all gotta have to make this work, and I'm trying to figure out exactly what that is.
It's the property, it's the ability to make the property responsible to you instead of the company. If the bank doesn't need to worry about who owns that property, they're willing to go out 20 years. They
But
don't-
that's the same as my home mortgage. I mean, they're gonna repossess my house. You know, they're not gonna repossess me, they're gonna repossess my house. Or my business, they're gonna repossess my business, they're not gonna repossess me.
If I would, if you would be willing to have us back and maybe meet with staff and answer questions.
And I think that's what's gonna have to happen.
Yeah, because I think we're just going,
There would be something wrong if you said, this is great today.
No.
I've never heard of it. You need to know from your staff, you need to be comfortable with this, and nobody.
And maybe y'all can set something up and we can have a lengthier discussion.
We can visit with you.
And it may be the greatest thing in the world, I don't know.
Well, I want to
A lot of
thank you for
pieces.
enough. It is, but nothing worth having comes easy, right? So I want to thank you for your
Thank you.
time.
You spent an awful lot of time trying to get this passed in Austin.
Believe it or not, I'm still, we did this in one session. It was the most fun project I've ever worked on. We had everybody. There was nobody opposed.
But you were living there for 6 months.
Pardon?
You were living there for 6 months.
Well, yes, I know. Yeah, and the next thing I knew, I lived in Austin.
On behalf of Judge Dicey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
And for the record, you know, I'm in favor of upgrading our local churches.
Thank you.
Time it's, did you have?
Run for the.
One question from the lady.
Yes, sir.
All right, you said that the assessment passes from one owner to the other. Let's say that, that commercial, we're talking in terms of the commercial operation sells and the assessment passes. All right, let's say that a bank that has a repossessed property, that property was in dire need of exactly what we're talking about, air conditioning, plumbing, and everything else. And they qualified, would that qualify, would a lender, a bank qualify for this program? The advantage being that then later, when they dispose of the property and sell it, they have already taken care of all these deficiencies, and that assessment will be at a lower rate than if the person that bought it had to go out and borrow the money. Would that work?
Absolutely. And that's, and in fact, I know you're in a hurry. If one of the reasons.
always looks at me, it's like.
One of the reasons that banks will grant consent and be willing to go second behind the senior lien is because if they have a mortgage on a building that's in trouble, buildings that are fixed up are much less likely to go in default than buildings that have a lot of maintenance needs.
Okay.
But if they end up taking the building so they can keep it out of the tax issue until they can sell it, they will pay less than they would have to pay for utilities, and tenants will stay until they can get it sold.
That answers my question.
Thank you.
They use somebody else's money to do it, too.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go to item 8, discuss possible action to purchase a backpack for $1,046.20 for mosquito control.
That's so move.
Second.
There's a motion, a second, any discussion? Not all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nobody, 5-0. Next, item 9, discuss possible action on scheduling date of November 15, 2017 at 5:05 PM for required public notice, public hearing for Texas CDBG.
Carl, would you have a time and you have a date? Am I missing the place?
This is a requirement with, we're closing out the project. This is a project out there at Comstock and out here on Hamilton Road.
Where you, what?
November 15th, be 2 weeks on the day.
No, no, but
Where's
where?
the place?
Oh, here,
Here?
yeah, county court of law.
Motion approved. Second. And add, this location as the place.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Not all those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nobody, 5-0. Item 10, discuss possible action on draw number 7, TDA for Texas CDBG 721-5499, request for payments, for $2,925, and Reyes and Son for $1,977.65, all for the Hamilton Road water line.
And the
Oh, I'm sorry,
58,795.
58,000.
All these have already been paid. All we're gonna do is just submit to get reimbursed. Is that right?
Correct.
Motion approved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nobody, 5-0. Next, item 11, discuss possible action on a request for the city of Del Rio for the use of county courthouse for preceding election night results, the use of election equipment and supplies in order to conduct the Tuesday, November 7, 2017 city charter amendment.
Move.
Move.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nobody, 5-0. Next,
Just, we don't need number 12. They've withdrawn that.
okay. Let's go now to item 13. Discuss possible action regarding the purchase of steel pipe and purlin for the construction of a fairground fence on 15th Street. Estimate cost $1,600 feet of materials at $7,000.
Move.
So moved. Second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nobody. 5-0. Next, item 14, discuss possible action regarding the payment of executed purchase not complying with current purchasing policy. Yeah. Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you. It's the PO issue dates. They are expected because it's a new year, and so.
Motion approved.
Second, I didn't get one.
Thank you.
I didn't get one.
Questions?
We wouldn't have.
Okay. All right. Okay. All those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nobody. 5-0.
What does that mean? I didn't say nothing. I'm pointing the finger at nobody. I didn't.
All right, next item, 15, discuss possible action regarding the transfer of funds from 83rd District Court Office Supply to Capital Outlet for purchase of, purpose of purchasing computer equipment for the amount of $2,031.46.
Move.
So moved.
Second.
Second, any discussion? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nobody, 5-0. Next, item 16, discuss possible action on regarding authorization for the county judge to sign the renewal application for tax for liability coverage.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion. Need a second? Second, any discussion? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nobody, 5-0. All right, let's go to item 17, discuss possible action authorizing Sheriff Joe Frank Martinez to request a credit card for the Val Verde Sheriff's Office for the use of Sergeant Sergio Mendoza.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion.
Second.
Second. And discussion. If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nobody, 5-0. Next item, 18, discuss possible action on agreement between District Attorney, 63rd and 83rd District and Val Verde County Sheriff.
Yeah, this is an agreement that is regulated by Chapter 59 of the Texas Penal Code that
basically regulates that there'd be an agreement between, the 63rd and 83rd and the asset forfeiture, seizing property and all.
And who gets what percentage?
Yes, sir, it defines that.
What
And we
percentage do
came
you
to, we
get?
came to that agreement, the numbers that are there.
Sixty-four,
60/40 basically, and then anything under 4,000, goes to the 63rd, 83rd.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion, need a second?
Okay.
Second, any more discussion? If not, all those in favor, indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, nobody, 5-0. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we have item 19, discuss possible action requesting the Commissioners Court to withdraw, terminate current lease agreement with the District Attorney's Office.
Judge, we're gonna table this and bring it back after executive session, please.
Okay?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, next item 20, Treasurer's Monthly Report.
Move.
Morning, Commissioners. Actually, this isn't for approval. This is a preliminary report as to what we ended yesterday at 1 o'clock. Just to kind of give you an idea of what the month ended as far as the general fund. On that general fund, there's 550,000 más o menos that's in transit, deposits in transit that we received around 1:30. So,
They need to be added.
yes, they will be added. The true report, after we approve all the bills and payments today, the true report that will be effective today, will be, our next report. So that'll actually give you a better
The
idea.
final report.
Okay.
So, that's just a preliminary report, just to give you an idea of what we ended yesterday.
Thank you, Aaron. All right. Next, we have the HR Monthly Report. Need a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion, a second. All those in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nobody, 5-0. Next, we have discussed possible action regarding the following items: approval of interlocal agreement in Regional Public Defender's Office and authorizing the judge to sign it.
He's the regional public defender.
Yeah.
That's an organization out of Lubbock that's for, it's basically a pooled cost for capital cases.
Yeah.
And it's something we do every 2 years. Every 2 years, they just require.
Motion to approve and authorize the judge to sign.
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor, indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, nobody. Item D, we will table until executive session. We will now go into executive session pursuant to the Government Code 551.071, parentheses 1, parentheses A, and 551.071, parentheses 2. Taken. Let's get back to item number 25, approval of subdivisions, any?
We're gonna go back to 19.
Okay. No, none? Okay, let's go back to number 19.
Judge, we're just gonna table this item.
Second.
And bring it back at the next meeting.
There's a motion. Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nobody, 4-0. All right, now let's go back to item 26, no certificate of compliance. On the approval of monthly report from elected officials, I know we have one. The sheriff gave us a copy of the
Motion to approve.
motion to approve. Need a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Sheriff, did you want to make a comment on that report?
Yeah, just, this report is from the Texas Commission on Jail Standards, and, they passed and there was no deficiencies noted. There was a couple of things that were asked to repair, but they'll get that done. Also, they're going through an audit, right now. The Geo Group hired a firm to do their internal audit, so there'll be a, check out tomorrow, so if anybody wants to go either tomorrow or Friday morning, if anybody wants to be present there, I'll let you know what time, just let me know if you're interested in attending the checkout.
Thank you, Sheriff. All right, I need a motion to approve bills for payment.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nobody, 4-0. There's no comment from the judge, and this meeting's adjourned.
Okay.